Hello there, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to be back with a masculine scrapbook layout. We're creating 2 pages tonight using scraps and leftovers. About 10 days or so ago, I shared that I had created this series of buckle cards in June. I love them. I used the Weekend Adventure Designer Series paper and the Scenic Adventure Stampin' die set. I had to make so many for an enormous project, and I ended up with all of these leftover strips. And I decided to make it a mission to use up all of these strips and create scrapbooking layouts with them. So I created the first of an 8-part series where we created this strip scrapbook layout with a traditional grid where we created the mountain scene over to the side and a secret pocket journal card. I loved it, and it feels so good to bust my stash and scrap with my leftovers. So tonight we're going to be doing part 2 of this series, and you can see on last week's where we just have these strips and the small pieces that we can get off of those strips. So tonight, I'm going to be scrapbooking my grandson, Waylon James. He has this buffalo plaid hoodie on. His mom is a vet tech, and he loves animals. I took him to the Science Museum where they had a pretend veterinarian station, and he had so much fun helping all of his new friends and his animals. And I love this series of photos of him being Dr. Baxter. So I think we can use these scraps, even though they lend themselves a little bit more toward camping and hiking. They make great masculine layouts or little boy layouts or even little girl layouts when they are themes that have a little bit more of a masculine tone. So all I've done here is I've made sure that my strips are 1 1/4 inches. I decided to use just the buffalo plaid and the black pinstripe. I think that's going to go great with the white vet coat and the buffalo plaid hoodie that Waylon James is wearing. And I think it's going to be so simple. And the idea behind this series of 8 videos is that these layouts are so easy to case. So you will be able to reduplicate these with scraps of your own, even if it's with a different series besides Weekend Adventure. So I have a 3/4 by 12 inch black strip here. And what I like to do when I'm working with strips and I'm not sure about the length on the bottom is I like to just tack the cross piece in place with foam tape or adhesive and leave the center loose. So I'm going to adhere the first strip a 1/2 inch in from the right and a 1/2 inch down from the top. And I want to stagger the strips at the bottom. So the cool thing about a strip layout like this is that you could use dies and make different patterns across the bottoms of the strips. You could dovetail the bottoms of the strips. You could cut those on an angle. You could tear those. You could use punches that have different designs on the bottoms of those. You could curl them. You could distress them, and you could ink them. There are so many different things that you could do at the bottom of a strip layout like this. Now, as of right now, on the left-hand side, I have 5 strips. I do decide later that I want to fit extra photos on there, and I add another strip. On the right, we have 8 strips. Now, let me double check here. 3, 6, 8. Yep. And they're all 1 1/4 inches, the longest being about 11 1/4. But all of them are just torn at random pieces. Now I want to keep that masculine vibe, so I've run some score tape across the bottom of the 3/4 inch strip, and I'm going to add some twine to the bottom of that. You could add burlap, twine. There's so many different things. You could add another strip of paper or a pattern piece of paper, and I just wanted to have that as texture. Now, what I'm really hoping is that I can fit 2 full-size photos over on the left. So we have this picture of Waylon James checking out the x-ray and then doing his exam on the big black dog. Now, I really want to toggle these to fit both of those because they're so cute. I don't want to sacrifice one of those. I could put one in the middle and add a flip flap. But I think if I add another paper strip over on the left, then I actually could still have room for a decorative element and also still be able to get both photos. Over on the right, I also have a 4x6, a 4x4, and 2 3x4s. So I feel like I can toggle those. If I can get that second 4x6 over on the left, I can toggle those perfectly. So Waylon James took his job seriously. He was checking out their ears, their hearts. He was performing surgeries. He was giving them baths. He was doing so many things. So here I can add that strip. So now there's 6 strips. I think after creating 8 layouts with my leftovers, which you've only seen one of them so far, we're going to work through all of those. I did get a little bit delayed because we had a death in my family, so I wasn't able to get back to it. I had planned on posting 2 or 3 videos a week using up these scraps. Now, I love to add texture to masculine layouts, and I've used this 3D buffalo plaid or 3D plaid embossing folder for so many things. So I've added a little strip of that in pecan pie just to the back, and I think I do end up pulling that up a little higher because it's a great landing spot for the title. I either see myself putting the title over to the left or on the top or doing both, and I'm just looking at my stash and doing some stash busting. We have the brand new prairie grass, which I do love, but it doesn't quite go with this. Maybe with one of my masculine ones or actually one of my outdoorsy ones that I do here. I also have the Umbrella Days Stampin' die. I have an old close to my heart die that has a Love This Boy in it, and then one that has Band-Aids, and it's called Sounds Like It Hurt. And I want to create some Band-Aids with that. Now, I did a little bit of Googling because everyone knows I'm a brand new Stampin' Up! Demonstrator only about a year ago. But I did Google, and Stampin' Up! Has a Band-Aid set and a stethoscope set, which would be so cute. And so when Googling that, it's nice to know that you could bust your stash, whether you're from Stampin' Up! Or if you have some old close to my heart stash left. Now, I happen to love the little tiny dog in the Umbrella Days and the saying, be brave. And I also thought about clouds because the clouds kind of go with, oh no, you're having a bad day. And it just gives me an extra icon. I'm not adding Cricut cuts or anything to this layout. I just want a stash bust, and I want to use things that I have in my stash. So I will stamp some dogs on here from the Umbrella Days stamp set, and there's a little teeny tiny jacket that you can put on the dog that I thought was really cute. Maybe a couple of those I'll just marker, and then a couple of those I will add the jacket to. So I made a little buffalo plaid jacket out of the scraps, and then a pinstripe jacket out of the scraps. I actually did one of each of the dogs, and I just used my Stampin' Write markers. I could have used Stampin' Blends, but they're such small dogs that I just used my Stampin' Write. Didn't do a lot of technique, just literally colored the dogs, and I used pecan pie. I used crumb cake, and then a gray, like a basic gray. And then because it's in this collection, I also used Cajun Craze. And I think those are going to make fun elements. So I've got some of the tags, some of the clouds, some of the dogs. I have created some circles with the Spotlight on Nature die from this old stamp set from Close to My Heart. I have Love This Boy that I'll create into a banner, and then Sounds Like It Hurt, I have the Band-Aid. So literally all kinds of things from my stash. You can just dig through and find some elements that will be nice to cluster. I hear from paper crafters a lot that they're not sure what to decorate pages with if not florals. There are so many things that you can decorate pages with besides florals. Now I've taken a 1 inch by 1.5 inch cardstock pieces, Cajun Craze, Black, and Crumb Cake, and I've dovetailed the bottom of those. I'm going to dovetail the bottom of this piece here, just creating that into a title piece. Now you could add acrylic letters, punch out letters, you could die cut letters, you could add letter stickers. There's so many things that you could do, and just stash bust and try. You can find an additional stamp that has a title you want. I decided to go a little bit further aside from Love This Boy and add Dr. Baxter. So most of you who watch my channel know I've been using up buckets and buckets full of acrylic shapes. And I have been adding the acrylic shapes anywhere that I can to get those used up. I have so many left over from Close to My Heart. But again, die cutting with a die cutting some letters out. There's lots of things that you can do for your title. So I have Dr. Baxter. I'm going to add a little banner on the corner, and then I loved the idea of just trailing the Band-Aids and making a cute border with those Band-Aids on the left. Just that little element of interest where your eye goes out and back in and out and back in. We've added a little texture by adding foam dots to the Band-Aids. So we have texture with the 3D Plaid embossing folder. We have texture with the twine. We have texture with foam tape and popping up. And now my good old standby Spotlight on Natures are going to help me with some landing spots and some clusters. I'm going to go ahead and stamp Be Brave with the Umbrella Days stamp. I'm going to blend a little bit of pecan pie ink in that and keep it so basic and so simple. And then I'm going to blend the pecan pie over Love This Boy. I love his enthusiasm. I love how much he loves animals. He is truly an animal lover. My heart just melts when I see him with animals and how much love he has with them. And like I said, his daddy Zachary, my son, works on the ranch, is around animals all the time. And then a huge influence for him is his mother, who is a vet tech, and then they have lots of their own animals at their place as well. So I'm trying to just put together a cluster of 3 circles over on the left. There's some little hearts out of that Sounds Like It Hurts stamp and die set from Close to My Heart that I can add some little embellishments with those. I can add a couple little circles up to the top of the photo on this left side just for some landing spots to make them look a little bit like tabs. We can add one of the dogs to that. We still have 2 more dogs. So if we add one of the dogs to the lower left by Be Brave, maybe we can add a couple of the dots to carry that theme, or the dogs to carry that theme over to the right. So I've made a few of those hearts from the Sounds Like It Hurts stamp set. I made a few Cajun Craze. I made a few Buffalo Plaid. I made a few Pinstripe, and I made a few Black, and we'll just add a few of those here and there to tie that in. And they're great fillers, especially when you don't have stickers. So we're creating this layout completely out of scraps and leftovers. So we're using stamps and dies from our stash. No Cricut cuts, no stickers. And so sometimes it can be tricky to get your bits put together, but it makes you feel so good when you just grab things that you have in your stash and you get more use out of them. So like I shared, I have 8 layouts in the series of using up these scraps, and we are on layout number 2. And so hopefully I will be cranking those out here just a little bit faster. Like I said, I had a death in my family last week, which took me away. And then my son was involved in a ranch accident with kind of being trampled by a cow. And so he had a major surgery on his leg. So we have had it, but I'm really happy that some of the drama and the trauma is now behind us. And I'm happy to get back to scrapbooking wonderful things. Isn't this our therapy? We just love getting back to our paper crafting because it's so good for our soul. So I've added a couple more of those clouds from the umbrella days to the right side just to stay consistent. And again, the dogs themselves and the puppies are having better days, right? So the rain clouds can just be a nice little filler. It doesn't have to be literal. And I've added a couple more dogs and a couple more hearts over there on the right. And then I added my journaling to the lower left, talking about Waylon James's passion for animals and how much fun he had at the Science Museum pretending to be a vet. Now I'm using some stars that are from our brand new Spooky Sweet collection, and they're glitter stars, but they're black and they work perfect for boy layouts and masculine layouts and outdoor layouts and sports layouts. So I've added a few of those and I'm getting happy. I'm so happy to bash my stash and use some different things from the stash and use up another huge handful of those scraps that I created in June that I need to use up. I hope you've been inspired by this easy to duplicate layout and that you can see the potential of using all kinds of paper strips up on a layout like this. I really hope you'll stay tuned, hit like and subscribe and the notifications bell for the remaining 6 masculine or outdoor layouts using up scraps and our stash left in this series. I hope you'll hit like, subscribe, the notifications bell, shoot me a comment and share, and come back soon.